When Mendel studied about the inheritance pattern in a monohybrid cross, he came to conclusion that the trait is governed by a pair of genes. Now, he further wanted to study that whether the different types of traits segregate individually or independently of each other, or whether they are carried together. So he wanted to study the different contrasting traits together. For this, he used the dihybrid cross. It is the crossing of plants that differ into observable traits. So here in this video, we'll be talking about the dihybrid cross and further the third law of Mendel, which is known as the law of independent assortment. So the dihybrid cross involves the crossing over of two plants which differ in two contrasting traits. So maybe one plant is having round seeds, other plant is having the wrinkled seeds, one plant will be having the yellow seeds and the green seeds. Or we can opt of any of the contrasting traits that we have studied in the previous video. There were 7 pairs of contrasting traits. We can choose any 2, but the pattern of inheritance will be same. So over here we are taking the plant that is round and yellow, and another plant that is wrinkled and green. Now over here, these are the two plants that differ in two observable traits. This is round and this is yellow. So the first plant we have chosen is showing round and yellow phenotype. Other plant is wrinkled and green. Now, just as in the first case, Mendel has developed a purebred in the case of monohybrid cross. Similarly, he developed the purebred variety of round and yellow plant and wrinkled and green plant, ensuring that it is a homozygous for round and homozygous for wrinkled, homozygous for yellow and homozygous for green, ensuring the purebred line. Now here, when they will be producing the gametes, the gamete produced will be this, and when these plants will be crossed, all the plants in F1 generation, this is F1 first filial generation, all plants which were observed were round and yellow. That showed the dominant nature. Now, to obtain this was by crossing or cross-pollination. When these plants were selfed, that is the F1 generation was selfed, this combination resulted into the formation of different types of gametes. So here the gametes produced will be, the gametes which will be produced by them will be RY, that is this, these are the 4 possible combinations of the gametes which will be produced by the F1 generation. Now, if we arrange them in a Punnett square, or if we arrange them in the checker box, what are the possible combinations? Let us study. So these are the gametes which we are arranging over here, and on self-pollinating this, we are arranging them. Now here you can see again this is the P1 generation, that is the parental generation. The parental generation is purebred for round and yellow and wrinkled and green. When these plants were cross-pollinated, they resulted into the plants which were all round and yellow. Similar to the case in the monohybrid cross, where the first F1 generation showed the dominant trait. So here we can make out that round and yellow is a dominant trait over here, masking the wrinkled and the green. These are the recessive ones. Now, when these plants were selfing, these plants, the gametes produced by these plants were the capital R, because R and R is homozygous condition for round, and Y is for yellow, capital Y. This is for R understanding. Then wrinkled is small r, and this is again homozygous, and the green is represented by small y. So here the gametes are produced. Now let us prepare the checkerboard or the Punnett square, by which we can get an idea what will be the F2 generation like. So here, if we do it this way, now here we are what we are doing, we are taking the gamete this side also and this side. So on combining we get this over here. This is the possible combinations. Now let us complete this. Now let us focus on the capital R and the capital Y. So if we find out, here we have one capital R and one capital Y, that means the plant will be round and yellow. Here also, here also, here also. So these are 4, 5, again skip this because over here the y is small, so we have 5 till here, 6, 7, 8, 9 over here. So we have 9 plants or 9 individuals which are round and yellow. Coming to the next, we see that this is round and Y is for green. So we see round and green. So let us focus on capital R and small y. So we find 1 over here, 2nd over here, and 3rd over here. So there are 3 round and wrinkled. Sorry, round and green. Again, coming to the ones which are round and coming to wrinkled and yellow. So we will focus on small r and capital Y. So 1, 2 and 3 over here. So we get 3 wrinkled and yellow. And only 1 over here, it is wrinkled and green is a recessive trait. So we get 1 is wrinkled and green. So we find that when the F2 generation we are talking of, F2 generation can produce, these gametes can produce 16 different combinations. Gametes produced are 4, but the 16 different possible combinations are in the ratio 9:3:3:1. So the dihybrid cross ratio, that is F2, is phenotype ratio we are talking of 9:3:3:1. The genotype ratio varies because it is, again we will see over here what is the purity of this particular. So 1 pure, so that means 1 pure round and yellow, and how many heterozygous, that all needs to be studied. So the genotype is different, but the phenotype ratio of dihybrid cross is 9:3:3:1 over here. Now, when we study this carefully, we find that when two pairs of traits are combined in a hybrid over here, the separation or assortment of one pair of trait is independent of the other pair of trait. So that is what is known as law of independent assortment, and it was put forth by Mendel, and that is the third law. So the first two laws were based on the monohybrid cross, that is the law of dominance and the law of segregation, whereas law of independent assortment is talking or explaining about dihybrid cross, where the separation or the assortment is completely independent of the pair of the from each other. So here we can study, we can find out that what all possible combinations are there, and the dihybrid ratio then stands at 9:3:3:1, whereas in the case of monohybrid, the phenotype ratio is 3:1. The dominant character will be behaving same, and the recessive over here, as you can see, the recessive trait is expressed only in a homozygous condition. Otherwise, it is not able to express itself. So the recessive trait is behaving the same way as in the monohybrid cross. So the third law of independent assortment is also a very important law.